this is Dr. Hausinger, and this is our virtual class explanation for tomorrow, which is Valentine's Day, or today, if you are looking at this on Thursday, the 14th of February, 2019. So this is the assignment that we were going to be doing in class, but because of the weather, yet again, we are going to be meeting virtually. This is the assignment that we had planned to be doing today in our regular class time. So the first thing that we'll be doing is reading this article. It's original research, opioid and drug prevalence in top 40s music, a 30-year review. So you're going to be reading this, the whole thing, not just the abstract. You'll need to read the entire article in order to be able to look at the assignment and do the assignment. Pay attention to the graphics. I do want you to skim over the references and also this part here, the appendix, which is pretty interesting. Okay. So reading that, or if you choose to, you could look at this first. And you're going to fill this out. It's a little similar to the article that you did last week, which is which was of your choosing. However, we're going to kind of use this as a discussion point and then hopefully talk about it next Tuesday. I'm hoping that we do have class. So I would actually read through this form first. You might even want to have another copy of it and write on it, or just save it so that you can look at it and have your have your notes there. Okay, so this is designed to help you get more familiar with critiquing and looking at and evaluating research. I personally think it's interesting, but being in my line of study, I think that drugs and music is a really interesting topic. Okay, so about your assignment, looking at your research questions, and I know many of you have contacted me wanting to talk about your research, and we can certainly set up a Skype appointment. I have a lot of availability this Friday. However, I'm hoping that office hours and things will be running as usual next week. So there are 10 questions, and I'm referring to your assignment A2. There are different questions here, and we'll just look at that real quick. Now, you don't necessarily have to have all 10 questions answered, but you're going to have your big question, and then there are other questions underneath it that come up. And so, for example, if you're looking at, I know we keep talking about this topic, but it's a great topic, veterans and homelessness, there might be other questions there, like what are the reasons for homelessness? Is it substance use? Is it mental health? Is it lack of continuity in funding? Is it all of these things? Other things you might want to look at, family, children, etc. So there's going to be a lot of different things that you're going to look at. So you don't necessarily have to have 10 research questions, but you have your big question and your prima facie questions. And after reading chapters 3 and especially 4 is about going back and looking at your questions again. And in some forms of research, such as emergent research, you actually might have your questions at the end of the, at the end of the study rather than at the beginning. That can get a little bit messy. It makes statisticians a little bit nervous. So we'll be talking about methods soon in the upcoming weeks, and there's a lot of different methods that you can do. So I don't want you to think that you would necessarily have to have 10 questions, but what you're doing here is really looking at all the different variables and things that could happen in different questions. So when we meet to discuss your research, and if you have met with me to discuss your research, I ask you a lot of questions, which makes you have more questions as well based on, well, let's look at this angle. Okay, so are there variables that are independent of this topic, or is the variable dependent, or is it, and vice versa? So those are things that you want to look at. Look at the definitions within your text. Okay, so that is A2, which is due on the 28th. Okay, and then you have your annotated bibliography form. There's some great resources here. I have a an example of a literature review matrix, and then I have a template both in Word and Excel for you. But this is the actual form that you're going to be looking at for your assignment. Okay. Right. So Dr. Din came up with this form. So we have the citation, what's the hypothesis research questions, what's the sampling, what was the design analysis. Okay, so this is your methodology right here. Okay, and then the results. Okay. So this is something that you will be turning in March 5th. And at this point in time, you will have 10 references for that. Okay. So some of you already turned in about 5. So if you haven't, you'll need to go back and read those studies, and you can use the studies that you came up with already, read them, synthesize them, and this is a great way to organize your research. Now, in a literature review matrix, it can get a little bit more involved. Okay, so I actually added a column here for you in the template that I have, which is where I want you to put the citation. It's just a very helpful thing to do. This is more of a doctoral one. What's the theoretical conceptual framework? Okay, what are the questions? What's the methodology? Analysis and results, conclusions, implications for future research, and implications for practice. So sometimes we have a gap between theory and practice. Something might look wonderful in theory, but be messier in practice. And usually it is messier in practice because there are a lot of variables that we might not have thought about or considered. Okay. So if you look at this, this is basically the critique form just in a matrix. Ooh. Okay, so this is your Moodle for this week. I'm hoping to be on campus tomorrow. I do have class later in the afternoon. So again, your assignment is right here, evaluating the article